What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to YGOPD, your Yu-Gi-Oh! Professional Development, and today I have Chimera with Super Heavy Samurai. This is one of the few decks I've been messing with post-Dune. I've been doing that the past few weeks. This was actually the first thing I picked up and just fell in love with Rescue Ace right after and kind of forgot I had this on the back burner and wanted to still go ahead and showcase it. Branded Chimera is probably the more popular version and probably the more correct version. I would say this is more of a greedier build, and also if you just want to learn, however, the Chimera stuff for what it is and not as combo pieces within branded and making things more elaborate, I think this is a really good starting point. But I will showcase the main deck, the extra deck, and then a basic combo of kind of how I use those two pieces together. But before we get into it, I want to shout out our new public subs of the channel, Lamiko and George. Thank you all for joining the channel. If you are new here and want to subscribe, just make sure public subscriptions are on when you do so. That way I can see you and just shout you out in the next video. So with all that said, we'll go ahead and hop right into it. Okay, for the main deck monsters, I'm doing this by package. I'll do the Chimera stuff, the Super Heavy Samurai stuff, and then the non-engine. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. 3 Cornfield, all of these cards are insane. They have a lot of great effects. This, as well as the card I will showcase next, are the primary starters of the deck. This is the ultimate starter. You discard it to add another illusion from your deck to your hand, which is going to be your main starter that gets your combo going. This has the engrave effect while you have the big Chimera Fusion on the board to banish it from grave to protect yourself from targeting. After that, we have Triple Mirror Sword Knight. This is the main monster that you're typically using as your normal summon, or in this case, Pendulum Summoning with Super Heavy Samurai. This guy has a couple different effects. While you have the Chimera Fusion on board, it gets rid of itself from the grave or the field to act as a monster negate for an effect on field, as well as tributing itself to get something from the deck, which is typically going to be one of 2 cards that mention, I believe, Chimera Fusion. One of those is going to be first the Gazelle, King of the Mythical Claws. This on summon either adds the fusion or the level 5 monster that you're going to search out, which in this case is Big Baphomet. Big Burfo on summon lets you add the Chimera Fusion, as well as typically what you're adding is the Gazelle. That just makes your guaranteed fusion live because the new Chimera Fusion takes 1 Fiend and 1 Beast. So just Mirror Sword Knight into this pretty much takes care of everything. And then all of these have insane effects when they're used to fusion summon. Big Burfo, I believe, special summons something back. Gazelle adds another one, and then the fusion will hand rip. So you can just chain block and do everything that you want. So rounding out the Chimera package is just Triple Chimera Fusion. The question is, you can get away with this if you have not been as familiar with this Super Heavy Samurai build. That was kind of the initial thing before Branded took off. You can do this because the fusion adds back to hand as long as you have that Chimera Fusion, I believe, either on your field or in your grave, if I'm not mistaken. But you typically do the combo and add this back. But you're always doing the Super Heavy Samurai stuff first anyway. But just for people who ask if you have to do the Chimera stuff first, you can add the fusion back and then continue to go from there. But again, the Big Baphomet on summon will lock you into fusions if you do the search effect, so that's why you always want to do the Super Heavy Samurai stuff first, as you typically would to insulate any deck playing that engine. That's it for the Chimera stuff. After that, I will showcase the Super Heavy Samurai stuff. We are starting off with 3 Wakaushi. I think this is pretty straightforward. This is one of the best starters you can have here. After that, we are playing 3 of the Bike. Again, either or starter is fine, but you just typically need one of these 6. And then 2 Benkai. You can get away with 1 if you really want. My luck, I always draw the 1, which just turns the entire engine off. So unfortunately, you do need 2 of these as an engine requirement, in my opinion. But again, the payoff is insane in this deck. And then after that, I am playing 1 Super Heavy Samurai Soul Piercer and 1 of the Scales. This is for the hand loop piece that blends in with the Chimera stuff. It does unfortunately play a little bit differently. You do need to dedicate your normal summon to the Soul Piercer and then pendulum summon the Chimera stuff. If you don't want to do that and just use this as a straight engine to either get a great level 8 Synchro, Baguska, or a Baron, you would cut both of these and just play 1 of the Soul Gaia booster. That's just your other option. I like this one. It's a bit more potent, but also a little bit more telegraphed and maybe a bit more frail. So you just have the option to swap that out if you wish. After that, the cool thing about these 2 engines is they're both powerful on their own. Both contain at least 6 1-card starters, so you have 12 there, have a good amount of extenders, and then you have a ton of room for non-engine. This deck rounds out at 40, and I believe we're almost close to like 15 plus to 18 non-engine in here, which is really insane. So we're just on hand traps. Again, because we're playing the Super Heavy Samurai stuff, you want to do the monster-based interruptions. 3 Ash, 3 Droll. Again, not much really needs to be said about this. Mainstay staples of the format right now. Because you're playing so many hand traps, I'm okay with playing Nib here. I'm not always a big fan of this because my luck, I typically just draw Nib and nothing else, and then I build a negate, and it just becomes a dead card. But with so many hand traps that you're kind of pairing with Nib or slowing down their combo, I think it's really good here. We're also playing 2 Mourner and 2 Veiler just to kind of differentiate a little bit there for regular effect negation. And then my favorite card in the deck, I love exploiting this card whenever I can, is 3 Hop Ear Squadron. This is my take on it. It's not necessary. You could just cut this, play 3 other hand traps, a called by and 2 other hand traps, whatever, play better cards. But I like what this does, and I just like the uniqueness of the combo and how this blends in. If you open everything, I'll showcase how this adds to the combo in additional layers when we get to it. But that's it for the main deck, a clean 40 cards. As you can tell, if you just want to get used to the Chimera stuff, this is a really easy starting point, I think, because you just have so much room for non-engine and a lot of different ways you can just play the deck. So for the fusions and just the extra deck, starting with the main 2, we have 3 of the amazing Chimera King here. I was lucky enough to pull one of the QCRs at my pre-release, and then eventually picked up another one from some of my friends, which was just really, really helpful. So this card is insane, has a few different effects. On summon, randomly discards a card from your opponent's hand at the end of the turn. Has the other quick effect during your opponent's turn. You can banish it from the graveyard to special summon back either a Fiend, an Illusion, or a Beast, I believe, which also pairs well with one of the Magnum the Reliever. You can even bring this back given it is properly summoned. This is another new super rare from Dune. This is just a quick effect pop and a really nice card to include in this deck. If you're playing Chimera in any fashion, I think this is always just an easy one-of slot to throw in there. And then, of course, unfortunately, this card got bought out. I'm glad I picked up mine back when they were like 8s, but 2 Guardian Chimera, this is a card unfortunately you need and has price gated this deck to an extent where it just makes me sick to now say you need $40 to $50 just to play this deck when originally you could pay like, you know, $10 or whatever for the supers plus a little bit for just the regular ultras, of course, of the King of the Phantom Beasts, and kind of make your way to it. But that's kind of is what it is. That's the fusions. For the synchros, we have for our 12s, one of the super heavy samurai big boy, as well as one Crimson Dragon. These are specifically here as it relates to Hop Ear Squadron. If you don't want to play that, you don't have to. But Crimson Dragon's kind of nuts, and the targets, how that works is Bestial Dispatter is what you're typically making during the normal combo, and then you can just have a different 10 that you can tag out. The 10 of choice I am doing is Majestic Star Dragon. It's a very old card, but a very powerful card now that we can just tutor it out for free. It is basically an Omni Negate plus a board wipe. When your opponent activates something, you get rid of it. You negate and destroy it, and then get rid of all cards they currently control on the field, which is just insane to be able to rip hand 3 cards, set up a board of like just regular negates, and then just have this on top of it to go into on your opponent's turn is nuts. And then the last 10 is, of course, just the 1 Baron if you're just wanting to go the safer route and your hand is kind of awkward. Excel Synchro is another card that I think is probably necessary in this deck if you're playing the Super Heavy Samurai engine. Again, if you really want to learn this deck bare bones, I think you could take the Chimera to locals and play it more in the invoked style with just 1 card basic combos with just some general non-engine. For the rest of the 8s, 1 Omega, again, part of the hand loop combo with Dispatter, and then 1 Draco Berserker. You just need 1 good generic level 8 if you don't want to do Omega. This is probably the easiest slot you could fill with that. 1 Desert Locust, this kind of plays into with Hop Ear Squadron a little bit. And then 1 Baguska, if your hands are just truly that bricky, this is kind of a way to use what you have to stall for a turn and then get your engine rolling. So that's it for the main deck, that's it for the extra deck, and I'll go ahead and showcase the quick 2-card combo. Okay, I have moved things around, just there was a little bit extra glare, so I had to change some stuff out. I'm going to showcase the basic 2-card combo of how you use the Super Heavy Samurai stuff and the Cornfield, aka the Chimera stuff, to really kind of take things up a notch. I have the Hop Ear Squadron here to kind of show what layers that adds to the combo, and then I will also just talk a little bit about, just learning the combo, just because, again, the point is to play through no hand traps here to get used to everything and how it functions. So again, you always want to go ahead and lead with the Super Heavy Samurai stuff. Just note that you technically do have 3 blanks in hand. Could be whatever, could be hand traps, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw those face down. So again, we know that This is going to be off of just 3 blanks in hand should you have the Cornfield as well as the Super Heavy Samurai starter in form of bike. 2 cards if we include the Hop Ear Squadron, which we will just for the case of this example. So we'll go ahead and get started and send the bike from the deck to the graveyard. And then we'll go ahead and search a copy of Wakaushi. From there, we'll go ahead and scale the Wakaushi, and then we will go ahead and special that Wakaushi out by placing then a copy of Benkai. Technically, Benkai comes first, and then Wakaushi comes out. From there, what you can go ahead and do is use the Benkai to go ahead and search a copy of the Soul Piercer. So we'll go ahead and add that card up. From here, the Soul Piercer becomes your normal summon in this case. Then you're going to go ahead and Synchro 8 here. From there, what you're going to go ahead and do is make a copy of Omega. From there, it's going to be Chainlink 1 Soul Piercer, Chainlink 2 Wakaushi to place itself into the scale. So we'll go ahead and try to do that. Keep things as condensed as we can here. And then we'll go ahead and search off of the Soul Piercer a copy of Scales. So go ahead and add that. From here, what you can go ahead and do is discard the Cornfield. And we'll go ahead and add a copy of Mirror Sword Knight from our deck to our hand. That will be important here. From there, what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to now, since we've already normal summoned the Soul Piercer, you're going to Pendulum Summon 2. You're going to do Scales and the Sword Knight. Of course, at any point, but now typically is the best point. Even probably before then, you're going to banish the Omega to go ahead and rip 1 card from our opponent's hand. I'll go ahead and just throw a dice on here just so we know that we've already ripped 1 card. So we'll say that we've ripped 1. From there, what we're going to go ahead and do is use the Scales effect to go ahead and bring back the bike, and then the bike effect to make itself a level 4. Then we can go ahead and Synchro 8. Again, we have to do all this now because otherwise we're locked into fusions. And then we'll go ahead and get Excel Synchro. Excel Synchro effect is going to bring back the bike again, and then we're going to Synchro for a 10. From here, we're going to make a copy of Dispatter. Dispatter will then bring back the Omega, and Omega is just a regular once per turn. Old cards are amazing. You can use the effect again. And now we've ripped 2 cards out of our opponent's hand, which is really, really good. From there, what we can do is then tribute the Mirror Sword Knight. And we'll go ahead and get a copy of the big Baphomet to the field. So we'll go ahead and grab that. Baphomet will trigger, and we're going to add a copy of Gazelle as well as the Fusion. From there, you can go ahead and use the Fusion, getting rid of the Baphomet and the Gazelle, to make a copy of your King Chimera. At end phase, this will rip another card out of our opponent's hand. So we'll just move this counter by Omega up to 3, which is really, really powerful. And then from there, what we can go ahead and do is that's like, I think, pretty much the standard combo here of how we've kind of gotten into everything. And the rest of it does happen on our opponent's turn. The last thing we're going to do, though, is, of course, resolve all of our graveyard effects in a new chain. King is always Chainlink 3 to rip a card, and then you have the ability to special back stuff for free. So we're going to go ahead and special back the Mirror Sword Knight. That one specifically does matter just because it gives you a little bit more advantage on your opponent's turn, as well as then adding from our deck to our hand. I believe it's another copy of Gazelle. I could be mistaken, but I believe that is correct. And then the Fusion itself can add it back from grave to hand. I'm going to double check that just to make absolutely sure. You can add an illusion monster from deck to hand. So it's not Gazelle. Sorry, Gazelle, it cannot add itself. We're just adding, in this case, it can be Cornfield, which is typically fine. So I'll go ahead and just add another copy of Cornfield. Just want to make sure that's correct. And then from there, you're going to pass turn. You have quite a lot happening, but then what you're going to do is on your opponent's turn, you contribute the Mirror Sword Knight to go ahead and get another copy of Gazelle from your deck. It's important that you at least have a level 4 on the board for the combo. So you'll go ahead and get the Gazelle, and that effect will trigger to either add a level 5 Fiend or a Chimera Fusion. We can do either here. I'm just going to go ahead and add the Fusion. The one thing to know is that the first fusion we had is probably set on the back row because it's another layer of disruption. But then what you can do on your opponent's turn is go ahead and use the Hop Ear Squadron to special summon itself, and Synchro for 6 with the Gazelle here. So we'll go ahead and get rid of those 2. And then we'll make Desert Locust. Desert Locust is going to make the turn player, aka our opponent, discard a card. So now we've ripped 4 out of their hand. And then from here we can go ahead, if we want, and quick synchro right there. And then we can go ahead and summon a copy of Crimson Dragon. Crimson Dragon effect can target the Dispatter, and then Crimson Dragon will bounce itself back for another Omni Negate here in the form of Majestic Star Dragon, which is an Omni Negate, as well as Dispatter being a live disruption. So we've ripped 4 out of hand. We have an Omni Negate. We have the Dispatter as another negate, and depending on what you decide to keep in your hand, you could wait and keep Guardian Chimera live with Chimera Fusion to just pop and draw even more cards for just infinite advantage. So that's the idea behind the Toxic deck for hand ripping. I don't think this is the best build. I think it's probably the greediest build, but I like it. I think it's still really cool and gets you a little bit of experience with just how the Chimera deck functions and getting up to speed with it. So that's it for the deck, the main deck, extra deck combo. Let me know what you guys think. What's your favorite build of Chimera? But with all that said, I will see you all in the next one. Later.